Uh, Good day, and I'm happy to be joining everyone again today. My name is Kawehunge, which means a flower floating in water, and it's in my language, the Gayokono or Cayuga language, and I come from the Bear Clan. So I wanted to share with you today. Um, a very powerful dream I had, which in the dream there was many prophecies that I didn't know these prophecies before I had the dream, and I want to share it because, for one thing, it, I can have a responsibility to share it whenever I can, because the people um, are supposed to be given the message, the warnings, because it falls on all of us. Prophecies are the way that I was told. Is always about when this happens or when our people come away from our teachings and are no longer carrying or sharing or helpful to each other, that uh, things are gonna start to happen again to make the people wake up and to change. So, anyways, this dream I had was in 1994, and at that time there was a conference happening here in my community, and this conference was put on by McMaster University, and Dr. Don Martin Hill was the one who coordinated it, I guess, and um, helped it to happen. So this conference was called Cry of the Eagle, and it was a gathering of indigenous people from all over the world, and they were invited here to come and tell their prophecies or to give the warnings. And so it went 4 days. It started on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And anyhow, this is what was happening at the time that I had the dream. And this is significant because in the end, you'll see the significance. So I wanna start out with saying that I'm sharing this not to scare anybody or to make them worry, but to make them realize that each generation is loved so much by the Creator that He gives us the opportunity to be a good person and care about each other and help each other, or changes are going to happen, cleansing's going to happen. And you're watching now the healing that's happening to Mother Earth just from the people not being in a part of this world. Like we're mostly having to stay home, stay inside, not drive the vehicles, and not um, mess with nature, really. So anyhow, I want to share this. This dream starts out, it's like, I'm guessing, but it was maybe around the end of May, beginning of June. All I knew was it was like early summer, late spring night. And there was a full moon. And so I was over at my parents' house, and I noticed how bright it was outside. So I said, I'm going to go look at the moon. And I went outside and I walked towards the east. and I stood at the corner of my parents' house, and I was looking up at the moon like that, and there was nothing real special. It was just a full moon, and it was just beautiful. And I was looking at that moon, and I was thinking how the Creator can make such perfect things in this world, and how beautiful she was, our grandmother. And I was looking up at the moon, and these clouds started to move in, and the clouds were coming from the south, and they were like thunder clouds. They were white and dark, and they were rolling like. And so anyways, when those clouds got to the moon, they split and they went around the moon like that. And I I was kind of shocked. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And so more and more clouds came, and when they would get to the moon, they would either split and go around the moon, or they would go up and over or underneath, but they wouldn't go in front of the moon. And I watched that for for a while, and I thought, how is this happening? How is the moon doing this? Like, is the moon giving off an energy, or is it the respect that the clouds are having for the grandmother moon? Like, what is happening? And as I'm watching this unfold, I noticed that two rings formed around the moon, and they were with those clouds. And so there was a dark circle with the cloud, and then there was a white circle, and that was from the clouds. And then the moon was in the middle of that. And so I was watching that, and I was like, wow. And I started to think back in my life. Like, I was very fortunate that I have been raised around a lot of traditional people, a lot of knowledgeable people, and I was privileged to hear stories, history, prophecies, our teachings, and so I started to think back if there was ever a time that I ever heard anyone talk about these two rings forming around a moon, and nothing would come to me. And I thought, this has got to mean something. Like, things don't just happen. There's a reason why. And next thing I know, I started to rise up off of the ground, and I started to rise up into the sky. And as I was going higher, I started to go faster. And a long time I went up through this dark sky, this nighttime sky. And then it changed to a clear blue sky. And it was like the sun was shining, and I could see all these birds. As far as I could see to the horizon, I could see birds. And those birds were all flying towards the south. And because I was still facing the east. And as I was going up like that, I I started to think that, oh, I must have died, and I must be going to heaven. And I started to get excited, and I was kind of relieved about it, actually. I was thinking, whoo, I made it. And anyhow, so then I started to think, one of our teachings is that when you die, there will be three of you that go. And when we're born, there's three that come. So you're never alone. So I started to look around in the sky like that, and I was looking for other people. And I was thinking, who else died with me? And at the same time, I was rising up like that. And I didn't see other people. I saw animals. And there was all these different animals scattered throughout the sky. And there was like domesticated animals and there was wild animals. And they were all scattered in the sky. And they were all rising up. So, but the animals were real calm. And I was scared. And I was wondering why these animals were so calm. And as I was rising up, I was thinking like, how am I doing this? Like, how am I floating or flying or whatever this is that's happening to me? And I started to look around like that, and I looked up. And when I looked up, I saw these claws, and they were like right here when I looked up. And those claws were eagle claws. And there was a huge white eagle that was pulling me up. And it was so huge. I was wondering, like, how am I going so fast? Because I was going really fast, but I wasn't losing my breath. Like I guess that eagle must have been blocking the wind, because I was going fast, but I didn't have a problem with the wind. And as I looked out one side where the wing was flapping, like they were both flapping, but I looked one way like that, and the wingspan went about maybe 75 feet. And the body of the eagle was about 15 or 20 feet, like in diameter. It was this huge white eagle. And I realized that this eagle was pulling me up, taking me up. And the eagle is, for Haudenosaunee people, is the messenger. He's the one that, or she is the one that keeps the creator informed with what we're doing and where we're at. And the eagle also gives us messages. So when I saw the eagle, I thought, oh, this is powerful. I better pay attention. This is important. So I started to really watch what I was seeing. And there wasn't much of a difference. Like, the thickness of the birds that I saw as I was rising up was so thick that I couldn't hardly see the blue in the sky. And the different species of birds was unbelievable. Like, there was birds I saw that I've never seen in real life. I've seen maybe on TV or I've seen in a book, but never seen in real life. Those things I was really amazed with. And so long time I was going up, like the nighttime sky was probably about this much. And that daytime sky where all the birds and animals were was like bigger than this. It was like a long time I was going through that daytime sky and seeing all those birds and animals. So a long time I was going up, and then I went into this white cloud, this mist, or I don't know, it was just all white. And the eagle left me there. And there was no birds, no animals. And I was in this white mist cloud. And so I thought that I was in heaven. So I got excited, and I thought, where's my relatives? Like, somebody's supposed to come for me. One of my relatives is supposed to come for me. And I was looking around like that in the clouds. And then I saw this beautiful native woman. And she was sitting maybe about 15 feet away from me or so. And she had long jet black hair, like down to her knees. And she had on a white buckskin dress. And she had fringe that went all like underneath her arms like that and all the way across like that to the other side. And when I saw her, I thought, she's from out west, because that's the style of dress that they wear. And I was just looking at her, and she was just so loving. She was so happy and kind, caring. And she wrapped me in a feeling. And that feeling was of like complete love and acceptance. Like there was nothing negative at all with her. And then she talked to me. And she talked to me from her mind to my mind. And she says, well, do you accept this? And I said, do I accept what? Do I accept what I saw? Or do I accept what's happened? Like, what are you asking me? And she said, do you accept what you saw was real? And I thought back about everything I saw, the moon, those rings, that eagle, all those birds and those animals. And I said, yeah, I believe all that's real. And she says, I want you to keep watching the moon. And when you see the moon like that again, and you will, she said, after that, the earth is going to start to change really fast. And she said, this is what will happen to you. She said, can you accept that? And I thought about it for a little bit, and I said, yeah, I can accept that. And she kind of took a breath like she was relieved. And she says, will you accept this dream? And she held her hands out like this. And there was nothing in there, in her hands. And I looked at her, and I had like a lot of questions. And I said, why are you holding your hands out to me? And there's nothing in there. And why are you asking me if I'll accept this dream? And I've had many dreams before. No one ever asked me if I'll accept it. I just had these dreams. I didn't have no control over that. And I said, and why does it seem like there's something to this if I take this dream? And she wouldn't answer me. And all she would say is yes or no. Will you accept this dream? And that was one of the hardest questions I ever had to answer in my life. Because I knew there was something to it. And it's kind of like, when somebody asks you to do something and you know there's something behind it, like a hidden agenda. Anyways, so finally I said yes. And as soon as I said yes, everything went black, like pitch black dark. And I was scared. And I was looking around. I was thinking, where am I now? Why am I in this darkness? And it was so dark that I couldn't see nothing, like no outline of anything. And I was really straining my eyes, and I was really looking around. And then I turned my head to the left. And when I turned my head to the left, I saw the corner of my dad's house. And I was laying on my back, and I was looking up at the sky, and that was the darkness, the pitch black darkness. And I started to laugh, and I thought, oh my God, I must have came outside. I must have been looking up at the moon, and I must have fainted or something. And none of this is real. And the earth isn't going to change. And, I was so relieved. And then I turned my head to the right. And when I turned my head to the right, there was this bald eagle standing there. And it was about 4 feet tall. It was like a huge bald eagle. And soon as I saw it, I put my head back down and I almost started to cry. And I thought, this is real. Why else would there be a bald eagle standing in my dad's lawn? And so I sat up and I looked at it, and it was real friendly. Like, it wasn't nervous and it wasn't scared of me. And it said to me, what are we going to do now? And I picked that eagle up and I put it in my lap. And I started to pet that eagle. But I was so nervous and scared. Like, I just couldn't believe that I was petting this eagle. And I was just shaking like that as I was petting it. And the eagle was real comforting, I guess. Like, it reminded me of a cat. When you go to pet a cat and it moves its body like that towards your hands. And so I was trying to be calm, but I was just shaking. And the next thing I know, I could hear my father talking, him and two of my nieces. And they were coming from the west. And so I picked that eagle up and I set it down. And I stood up and I took 4 steps towards the west. And I stopped and I realized that all along the horizon in the west, it was starting to get daylight. And I didn't even think, like, there's something wrong with that. Like, it gets daylight in the east. And all I thought is, I can see the outlines of the trees, because my father had a lot of trees in his yard. And I could see their silhouette. So I took off running and I caught up to my dad. And I said, Dad, you're not going to believe this. I said, I was standing over there on your lawn and I was looking up at the moon, and these clouds moved in and they formed these 2 rings around the moon. And then I started to go through the sky and I saw all these birds and these animals and this great big huge eagle. And then it took me up to this cloud. And so I tell him everything I saw. And he don't believe me. And he says, he says, you're not getting enough sleep. He said, go back to sleep. You're hallucinating. And I was like, no, I wasn't asleep. I said, I was standing over there on your lawn. I was looking up at the moon, and I went through it again. And he says, you've been reading too many books. You're just imagining everything. And I was like, no, I wasn't thinking anything. I said, I was just standing over there on your lawn. So I go through, and for like 10 minutes, I'm trying to convince him, trying to reason with him. And he just didn't want to hear it. And he just kept going, save it, and he didn't believe me. And after 10 minutes of me doing that, I stopped. And I just looked at him and I said, stop, Dad. I said, I know what I'm telling you is the truth. And I know what I saw was real. And if you don't want to believe me, well, heck with you. I don't have time for you. And I went walking back over to where I had held that eagle, and where I had saw the moon, and I sat back down and I was just in shock. And I was just rolling it over in my mind, like, how how could he think I can make that up, and why would I want to make that up? And like I couldn't understand. And that eagle that I had been holding had went and hid on the other side of my dad's house. And when I came and sat down, the eagle looks out and he looks to see like where my father and my nieces were. And so then the eagle comes walking over to me, and the eagle was sad, and it was dragging its wings and had its head down, and it was going back and forth like that. And it was it's like it knew everything, and it was very sad. But I was so sad in my own um, pain, I guess, of my father not believing me, that I couldn't even really look at it. Like, I was kind of mad at the eagle because I thought, why didn't you come out sooner and let let my father see you, and maybe he would listen, or maybe he'd believe me. But anyways, I kept looking at that eagle, and it just looked so sad. So I picked it up, and I put it in my lap again, and I started to pet the eagle, and I started to cry, and I started to cry really hard. And I was saying to the eagle, I said, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know how I'm gonna get anyone to believe me with what I saw, when I can't even get my own father to believe me. And I said, I don't know why he would think I would lie about this. I don't know how he could think I could make this up. And I was just crying like really hard. And the eagle would look at me, and he would look down like that, and he would look at me, and he would look down. And it was like, it reminded me of when I see my friend cry, that I don't really want to look at them because I'm afraid I'm going to cry. And that's how the eagle was. And the next thing I know, the eagle had tears. And I started to go through the sky again. And I went through the nighttime sky and the daytime sky. And I saw all those birds and those animals. And long time I was going up. Then I went into that cloud again, that white cloud. And when I went into that, that's when I woke up. And I woke up to the sound that I was making. And it was like I couldn't breathe. And I was going, like that. And that sound was very loud. And that's what woke me up out of this dream. So my routine was, whenever I would dream, I would call my mother, and I would tell her my dream, or I'd go see her. And so I called her and I told her, and she says, come over. So she just lives across the road. So I walked over to tell her. And so when I got done telling her, she said, have you been to that conference? And I said, no, it's too expensive. And I didn't have the money at that time. And she says, I'll pay for you to go there. She said, go there and tell somebody this dream, because I don't like what I think it means. And I said, well, what do you think it means? She says, I think you dreamed of your death. And I never wanted to bury any of my children. So I'll pay for you to go find me out something different. So I went, and I got there early. It hadn't started yet. And so I seen this man. His name was Thomas Benyanka, and he was a Hopi elder. And I went over to him, and I said, I had a dream. I said, can I tell you it? So I told him, and he says, yeah. He said, that's a Hopi prophecy. And I said, what is? And he said, the part where you saw your father, and it looked like it was going to get daylight in the west. He said, that's a Hopi prophecy, that there will come a day that the sun will rise in the west. And after that, the earth is going to change really fast. And I learned that, so at that time, that really scared me. And it shook me. Like I didn't even want to stay there anymore. So I came home, and it hadn't even started. It was like, I don't know, 8 o'clock in the morning. And I came home and I told my mother, and she says, that's it. That's how you found out. She said, what about you going through the sky and, all that? And I said, I don't know. I said, but I'm not going back. I said, I don't want to know anything. I don't want to know anything more. So she couldn't talk me into going back. So the next day, a friend of mine came from Syracuse, New York. And she wanted to go to the conference. And I told her, I said, it costs like $75 a day. And I don't have that kind of money. And she didn't either. She says, well, let's go. We'll sit outside in the parking lot. And I'm sure that we'll hear something. Well, they must have a sound system. So I went, and we weren't even there 5 minutes. And someone came out and they asked me if I would go and sit inside, and they would pay my way in if I sat with their auntie, because their auntie had broke her ankle and she had a booth, and if I would like get her food, snacks, whatever. So I said, okay. But anyways, what I learned is that in that dream, there was all these different people's prophecies in that dream. So the first part was when I saw the moon and those two rings, that is a prophecy from the people from the rainforest, that there will come a day that there'll be two rings that form around the moon like we've never seen before. And after that, the earth would change really fast. I had never heard that. The second part, where I saw all those birds and those animals, what happened was when I went to that conference on that Sunday, I told this lady my dream. And she says, you got to get up there on that stage and you got to tell the people this dream. And so I did. And at the end of telling the dream, I asked the people if anybody can help me understand it, to come and see me and please help me understand so I can bring the message back to my mom. So anyhow, that's how I learned what I'm telling you, is these different people from these different areas came and told me what my dream meant. So the next part, where I saw all those birds and animals, one of the traditional chiefs from my community came up to me and told me, he says, you reminded me of a prophecy that my grandmother used to tell me. And he said, she used to say that there will come a time that you'll barely see birds. You'll just see birds here and there, just enough to pacify you, to say, yes, there's birds. But the birds watch the people. And when they think that we're not gonna turn back and live with respect to all of life, that they're gonna start to leave here. And the birds and the animals talk. And when the animals give up on the people, that they're gonna turn back and live with respect to all of life, that the animals are gonna start to leave here. And he said that she told him, you're gonna start to see animals that you haven't seen in a long time. And the people will be fooled at that time. And they're gonna think, oh, we must be doing something right. Why we're seeing these animals again? There must be an abundance of them. But that's not true. The animals that we're going to see that we haven't seen in a long time are the last of them. And they're going to come out from deep within the woods to show themselves to us so that they can be shot or killed so they can leave here. And when we start to see those white ones are the ones who come to tell the animals that it's time now that they have to leave. And the next part where I saw that woman was the white buffalo calf woman. And I didn't know anything about her. And one of the Lakota elders came and talked to me after, and he asked me some things about that woman, what I saw. And he told me about the white buffalo calf woman and the message that she gave, that when the people stop listening to those teachings about caring for each other and helping each other and sharing and all those teachings that we have, I guess it's humanity, to care about each other, gendangsha, to have compassion, that when we stop helping each other like that and caring for each other, that she's going to come back again. And that she would come back as a white buffalo calf. And I think in 1994 or 93, one was born in Wisconsin. And I actually went and saw it. And I didn't know that the story then, but I went because of the people that I was with. They wanted to go see it. So that last part where I come back to the earth and I saw the sunrise in the west, that was not just a Hopi prophecy, but I learned that is also many different indigenous people's prophecies, that there will come a time that the sun will rise in the west. So that's all the things I learned on that Sunday night. And I came home and I told my mother. And then I went to work Monday, Tuesday, and I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't tell anybody the dream. I didn't want to talk about it. It scared me. And then on that Tuesday, I got a phone call at work. And it was a lady from here. And she says, I have some people here from New Zealand. She said, they're wondering if you would have lunch with us and if you would tell them the dream. And I said, sure, okay, I will. So we went for lunch, and so over the lunch, I told them the dream. And when I was done, there was 5 of them, and there was an elder man who sat across from me. And when I was done, he says, Wow, he said, that was the most beautiful dream I ever heard. Everything you talked about, he said, I could see it. And so I know that that wasn't just a dream. He said that eagle took your spirit and it showed you all those things so that you could come back and you could tell us what you saw. And he says, do you know anything about my people? And I said, no, I don't even know what you call yourselves. He says, we are the Maori people. And I said, oh, okay, yep, I've heard of your people. So he says, I want to share with you a little bit about my people. And he says, you see this staff here? And he stood this staff up, and it was beautiful. It was a carved jade staff. And he says, this staff is passed down from generation to generation. And when you accept this staff, you accept two main responsibilities. And he said, sorry about that. And he says, one is our prophecies. He said that I would know my prophecies inside and out and make sure that the next generation has it. We have over 300 prophecies, I think he said. And he said, the other responsibility is our ceremonies. He said that I would know my people's ceremonies inside and out and make sure that the next generation has them. He said, I accepted this staff 20 years ago when I was 58 years old. And he says, I want to share with you one of my people's prophecies. He said, when I was a young man, the old people used to tell us, there will come a time there'll be a gathering in the east of us. And at this gathering, there would be people who come from all over the world who have hung on to the original teachings. And they were going to come and talk about the changes that are coming to the earth and to the people. And at this gathering, there would be an awakening that happens. And there would be a young person who comes forward and they're going to speak about prophecies that they never knew were prophecies. And it would come to them through a dream. And I stopped eating and I looked at him and he says, you see, he says, in your dream, when the woman held her hands out to you and you accepted it, the dream, he said, do you know what you accepted in accepting the dream? And I said, no. I said, I don't know. He says, do you want to know what it is? I said, yeah, I guess I accepted it. I should know. He said, what you accepted was the responsibility to awaken other people's spirit, to prepare them for these changes that are coming. Because the spirit is the part of us as a human being that has been the most damaged. It's the part of us that a lot of people don't know how to take care of it. And I stopped him. And I said, no, I said, you have the wrong person. I said, no, it's probably somebody more like her. And because, you know, I just lived a very humble life. I didn't wanna, I didn't go after anything like that. And there's people who had fasted, who had, you know, did a lot of things like going after that kind of knowledge. And so I didn't feel worthy And I was pretty sure he had the wrong person. But anyways, he says, no, he said, it's you. He said, we were told, he said, why we had to come here. And he says, my old people told me who would carry this dream. And he says, let me tell you 4 things about you that my old people told me would carry this dream. And I thought, a 78-year-old man from New Zealand is gonna come and tell me 4 things about me that his old people told him. and I was kind of like, I don't know. I said, okay. I said, tell me. So he holds 4 fingers up and he says, 1, you only know your traditional ceremonies, your traditional beliefs. 2, you were born and raised through them, and you believe in them so much that you're able to do some of them. 3, you're not like most people your own age, that you never strayed too far away from your teachings. And I stopped him. And I turned to the lady that brought them and I said, what have you told them about me? And she says, Wendy, I never told them nothing. She said, all I told them was I knew where you worked and I knew you. And he started laughing and he says, you still don't believe me. He said, let me tell you this last one. He said, you recently lost someone. And this person you lost, there's no doubt in your mind that you know where they went. And I had a boyfriend who died in a car accident about a year and a half before this happened. And this boyfriend I have, he never drank alcohol in his life. He'd never done drugs in his life. And I was the only girlfriend he ever had. And when he died, it really, really shook my life. And so he says, do you want to know why he had to die? And I don't know if you've ever lost somebody young, but that's all you wonder is why. And so I said, yeah. And at this point I was mad, scared and mad. And I said, yeah. I said, I want to know why I had to lose him. And he says, you don't have to answer this because I know it's true. He says, but did you or did you not say to the Creator, what do I need to do here to be done? What's my job here? And I had. And I was by myself. And I was crying about it. And I asked the Creator, I begged him, tell me what my job is here so that I can do what I'm meant to do here, so that I can leave and be with my boyfriend. And I never told anybody. And so when he said that, I just cried. And he says, you see, he said, this person came into your life and he brought you to a certain point in your life so that you would ask that question. And all that happened is he answered you. And I'm sitting here telling you because we were told that when this young person has this dream, they might not know what their purpose is or what their responsibility is in having the dream. And so I was sent to come to find this person who was going to have this dream. So the reason I'm sitting here is not because I come to tell my prophecies. He said, the reason I come all the way over here was to meet you. And he said, if you think this is the last time you're going to dream like this, it's not. It's just the beginning. And it was. And I've had many dreams since then. But I just want to share that with you because it's a responsibility I have. And everyone has the right to know what's coming. If we don't change, we have to change and be good people. Be a good, responsible person. And I'm gonna end that now. And I hope that it gives you something to think about. And I'm not telling you to scare you. I'm telling you so that you're aware and what to watch out for, but also to change and help your family and help whoever you can to be more responsible, to be kind. Now,